Hey you guys, beautiful morning, late summer morning 2023 here at Ward Brought Music. Yes, I'm finishing up my summer repairs, believe it or not. And one of the last things I have to do for like the major stuff that came in was a set of Rogers Timpani for head replacement. And guess what? The school moved and they lost a bunch of these screws that look like standard drum key screws, but they're not. So I had to do some improvising, and I'll show you that in a second. But anyway, I just thought I'd do a quick tutorial on how do you tune and adjust a set of Rogers Timpani. Well, they are a little bit different than the Ludwig and Yamaha and your typical timpani that you might see. They made these in the early 70s to I think about 76 or 7. I don't really know the exact dates, and I'm not sure who came up with the design, if that was Joe Thompson, who was a magnificent kind of engineering head and machinist, but he invented the mouthpiece puller and the swivel-matic drum hardware and all kinds of stuff. He was quite amazing. Anyway, these are a little bit different than a Ludwig or a Yamaha in that the heads, yeah, you've got let's say you've got a 32-inch timpani. It's going to take a 34-inch head because they got what's called, well, what Ludwig called the extended collar. But this has become the standard, all right? Prior to 1978, the standard was that the head, the counter hoop went right down right next to the bowl. So one of the things that you find that's a little bit different tuning and installing these heads is, first of all, you're going to want to loosen up this mechanism. And I recommend, because there's going to be quite a bit of tension on it, first of all, put your pedal all the way in the down position. And that will take off tension here. And you just loosen this, and this screw here is going to come up quite a bit. You don't want to take it out all the way, but now I got it loose, I can do it by hand. All right, this is going to loosen this whole bottom plate that holds all these tension rods. That's very simple the way they're suspended in there. They got like, it's not a nut, it's a cross pin on the other side of this. And this plate just holds it all in place. And then these rods run up here, and these threads are 1/4 20. 1/4 20 thread pitch, okay? Go ahead, try finding 1/4 20 thread pitch drum lugs with this little shoulder. You can't find them. You can find 1/4 20s, but they don't have this little thing. So what I had to do in the case of the other timpani, go over here, I just went to the hardware store and I got some standard machine screws. Now you go, well, how are you going to tune it? You don't have a drum key like that. How are you going to match the pitch on these? Well, there's where the magic comes in with the old Rogers timpani. They're not tuned like a conventional timpani, not quite. These screws are tensioned all the way, and this rod gets sucked up to the bottom of this counter hoop. Now, how do I know this stuff? I'm not that old, but we had these in high school. So the high school I grew up in had Rogers timpani, and guess who changed heads on it? Me. So I packed that information away all those years ago. And did I think 40 years later I'd be working on a set of Rogers timpani in a career? No, I never did. But that's how these work. They just get pulled up all the way. So you have to loosen this guy, remember, get the pedal down, and then you just tighten them all the same tension. Now you will be saying, yeah, but there's no way it's going to be exact tension on each lug. You're going to have, how can you tune a head? How can you clear that timpani head and have it be perfectly pitch matched? And you'd be right to a degree, but the engineering that went into these was pretty amazing and is pretty foolproof. But if you do get one that's the pitch is a little bit low on and it's cranked all the way up, what you have to do then is just lessen the tension on the others just a little bit. And then everything, sort of like, remember those Pearl came out with like rototoms, right? You get the pitch set on all the lugs and then you just crank it, you turn it to tighten everything up. So it's similar to the rototom principle. You just tension everything up there then, okay? So that's pretty fantastic. Now, pedal tension. Once you, there's few timpani I've ever worked on in my life that didn't have a spring mechanism. In fact, there's been no timpani that have been other than this, that have had a spring mechanism which counters the tension of the head. Ludwig called it the balanced action. There's probably different names for it, but it doesn't really matter. There is a spring inside these guys, and the tension that's created by the head balances the spring tension. So if this head isn't in proper pitch range for this drum, this pedal is never going to balance out. You can crank with a mechanism all you want. You might get it to balance a little bit better, but 99% of the time, problems with the pedal tension issues are because the timpani itself isn't tuned to the proper pitch range. So it's easy to find that. Go online. You should know that a 32-inch timpani, typically D is going to be the bottom note. I know they were invented to go as low as C. In some timpani will get you a C, but most of the time no. And look at your band literature and find out what you really need to use. Anyway, that is kind of the long and short of it. Oh, on these timpani, there used to be a rod that it's missing, so none of them have it, so I don't know what happened to it. Probably just got fiddled with a lot by the kids, and it messed with things. But there was a rod that went from here all the way down into there, and then there was like a brown turn wheel on it. And I think, as I recall, that it was either a fine tuner adjustment, so you could adjust the pitch more easily with that, just fine tuning it. I don't think it was a pedal adjustment tension, because that is done by these standard drum key lugs here. You turn them clockwise, the heel will go down. You turn them counterclockwise, the toe will go down. They originally had ribbed rubber, like brown ribbed rubber here, to match this really nice 1971 Chevrolet Caprice Classic. No, this kind of, what I did is I got some, what is this, anti-skid self-adhesive. Just went to the hardware store, bought 3 feet of it, and I did this one, I did that one over there, and I did our friend out there in the beautiful sun. So that's how that works. You get the pitch range set, and then you check your pedals to make sure everything's going well. Put them toe down, let them sit overnight, let them stretch out, and you can come back in the morning, drop the heel, and start tap tuning and adjusting as needed. And again, if you have one tension rod that is a little bit low, that's cranked all the way up, go ahead and just lessen the other ones a little bit. Usually if this one is low, this one's going to be low, right? So maybe go for this one and drop the tension on this and see if you can get it to balance out or clear. And once you get that cleared, then you can adjust the entire pitch of everything just with that center mechanism. So that's pretty cool. Now, what about the success of the Rogers timpani? Experience playing these and hearing them is not that great. I think it was an interesting design, and it could have potentially been a really cool thing, but tradition is tradition in the band instrument world, and these they are fiberglass bowls, which isn't bad. That's not a bad thing. Ludwig has got some wonderful fiberglass bowls, as does Yamaha, and they sound great, but the bowl is much deeper, and these weren't very deep bowls. I think that's what inhibited the sound and didn't make them as good as it could have been. But mechanism wise, it is interesting. I had to replace various bits and parts on these. They lost a lot of stuff in a move, which kind of sucked for me, because then I had to figure out what was going to work. Fortunately, being a drummer and a percussionist and a brass repair guy, I've got all kinds of skills to make this kind of thing work. But this is my 32, and I dropped the pitch on this just now as you were watching. So let's go ahead and do this. Now we're already getting there, right? standard pedal. The low end just, it doesn't have that clarity that a deeper timpani has. You get into the mid pitches, not too bad, but those low frequencies really need that deeper bowl, in my opinion. So I don't know who did all the research and development of these, if it was Joe Thompson or there was another crew on it, but you know, to me they sounded a little bit more like tom-toms than actual timpani, but we used them. Russian Christmas music, remember that? I remember playing that on timpani. That was a powerful song. So anyway, that's the long and short of Roger's timpani. I could answer more specific questions, but essentially it's not tuned like a regular timpani where there's a lot of attention paid to each lug point, or like a snare drum or a tom-tom. It just crank them up until that rod hits the bottom of your hoop. And when it hits the bottom of the hoop, you should be good. But that's your tension point. That's to loosen all the tension, to get that plate to move so that you can actually get this tensioned up. And with that, I've got to do some more wiping down and cleaning up. But these are going to be pretty much ready to go back to the school and ready for the carnage that will ensue in a middle school band. Okay, thanks, and we'll see you again.